All right, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today for our newest webinar, Managing iOS 12 and macOS Mojave Upgrades. My name is Jim Grandbois, and I'm a solution architect here at Jamf. And joining me today is the fantastic Mark Buffington, our senior sales engineer.
You're too kind, Jim. Happy to join everyone today.
Thanks so much. Be super awesome to have your technical expertise along for the ride. So we're going to go over quite a few things, but here's our agenda. We're going to start with a brief overview of Jamf, who we are and what we do. We're going to move into what's new for IT management with the new Apple releases. And we're going to go in depth a bit on the macOS and iOS 12 upgrade strategies for your deployments out there. We're going to lay out some great next steps for more questions you may have and wrap up today with a little Q&A. So without further ado, let's get started with a brief overview of Jamf. Who's Jamf? Well, we help organizations succeed with Apple. And we do so with our two main products, Jamf Now and Jamf Pro. Here's a feature comparison between the two. Jamf Now's idea is simple to use, easy device setup, security without complexity. And Jamf Pro really brings that enterprise-class Apple ecosystem management in. With zero-touch deployments, device configurations, extensive inventory searching, and a self-service app catalog on both Mac and iOS. Here they are, side by side, the dashboards of both Jamf Now and Jamf Pro, designed to be easy to use. Jamf helps over 17,000 organizations to manage more than 10 million Apple devices, and we serve key markets such as the top tech companies, Fortune 500 companies, the most valuable brands out there, the top marketing groups, and over 6,000 schools. Today's webinar is all about the new management features of iOS 12 and macOS Mojave, plus upgrade strategies to both operating systems. Before we dive into the technical details, it's important to understand Jamf's approach to the new OSs and how we provide Day Zero support. Day Zero compatibility is defined by the ability for users to upgrade their device's operating systems without impacting critical IT workflows. Uninterrupted workflows are simply the bare minimum bar for Day Zero support. In addition to general compatibility with operating systems, Jamf also releases Day Zero support for new features within them, giving IT administrators the ability to take advantage of the latest Apple configurations, restrictions, and management features with the new Jamf workflows. So why does that matter? A handful of reasons, really. Number one, we can help reduce security vulnerabilities. Old versions of software are always less secure. Therefore, it's in your best interest to empower and encourage your users to upgrade to the latest operating systems. As an example, there's a pretty gross password bug back when iOS 10 launched. Secondly, we want to keep your end users happy. Apple trains users to keep their software up to date. In turn, Apple users expect to be able to successfully upgrade their devices the day a new operating system becomes available. With Day Zero support, you ensure not only is that expectation met, because our objective is to create that end user experience that Apple intends, and we must support that latest and greatest from Apple, not only is it met, but it's met with a smile. And last up, we're going to keep your users productive. The latest operating systems introduce new features that support greater efficiency and productivity. When you don't have true Day Zero support, you inhibit your users from taking advantage of helpful functionality, such as the better multitasking with the new dock and the ability to drop and drag content between apps that came out for iPad and iOS 11. Finally, we have a history of keeping up with Apple and providing Day Zero support for their operating systems and services. Here you can see our track record. For over a decade, Jamf has offered Day Zero support for all Apple releases, ensuring customers and end users can take advantage of the new technology as it becomes available. This year is no exception with Jamf Pro 10.7. So what's new? Well, we launched 10.7 on September 14th, keeping our promise of Day Zero support with compatibility and new feature support for iOS 12 and tvOS 12, which both launched on the 17th of this month. Additionally, we launched a separate update to Jamf Pro last week, 10.7.1. If you're a Jamf Cloud customer, your instance is already running it. 10.7.1 brings compatibility and key feature support for macOS Mojave, which launched just yesterday on the 24th. There's one significant change with macOS Mojave that you'll want to ensure you're aware of. Mojave offers better control over users' personal data. User information, images, and voices should only be shared with apps once the end user gives explicit permission. macOS requires apps to get your permission before accessing the camera or microphone. Same goes for data like messages history and mail database. This is known as user data protections and is brand new in Mojave. This is when apps and services request permission when accessing a Mac user's camera, microphone, or sensitive data. This is similar to iOS and how the mobile operating system handles requests to use the same types of info. This applies also to mobile device management tools such as Jamf, which need to be approved. In Jamf Pro 10.7.1, IT admins can choose to have Jamf be automatically approved or whitelisted upon enrollment of a user-approved MDM Mac running 10.14 or later. Here, you can see where you can turn this setting on, navigate to Settings and Computer Management, and ensure that automatically install a Privacy Preference Policy Control Profile, quite the mouthful, is checked. This will grant the necessary permissions for the Jamf management framework, including the agent, the binary, and app. So in summary, 10.7.1 adds full day zero compatibility and new key features for Mojave. The new user data protections, which requests permission from users, now requires approval for the Jamf management framework to continue working. 10.7.1 will automatically approve the binary, agent, and app for user-approved MDM-enrolled Macs, ensuring no loss in management. Plus, the new Privacy Preference Policy Control Profile will allow IT to configure additional apps and services automatically for the end user.
Going a step further beyond the automatically deployed profile, Jamf has also created a very extensive, detailed knowledge base article for IT admins to prepare for user data protections in Mojave. Please read it if you haven't yet. The URL up top will get you there really quickly. And there's additional options to deploy other privacy preferences policy control payloads for Jamf Pro, specifically around pre-approval for things that call up Apple events. Think scripts that have user interaction, for example. This additional profile will need to be added if you are doing different customizations. And additionally, we also have linked on that page additional tools from Jamf that have been made available to assist with both creating and uploading custom privacy profiles to Jamf Pro 10.7.1. So check that out if you haven't yet.
Phenomenal. All right, so a lot of great info, a lot of kind of setting up, but really what we're getting at here is we're offering compatibility for end users now with 10.7.1 across the Apple ecosystem who are being managed by Jamf. Users will be able to upgrade their devices without worrying about resources like corporate email or organizationally owned apps or VPN settings going away. Additionally, self-service will continue to work on their Macs and their iOS 12 devices once upgraded. For IT, you can feel good as well. Admins will be able to continue their existing MDM enrollments, volume purchasing and distribution of apps, deployment of configuration profiles, and various other management actions without having to worry about breaking any workflows. All right, so we're through compatibility. Let's take a look at what is new in these OSs for IT management. We're going to take a look at what's new for each operating system, Mojave, iOS 12, and tvOS 12, plus we'll look at what's new with Apple Business and Apple School Manager as it relates to management features and functionality. First, Mojave, the latest release of macOS. Mojave will provide some great enhancements to end users and IT admins alike. Let's start with the new MDM features. OAuth support for Exchange provides a modern way of authenticating to Exchange accounts. IT admins will be able to enforce this when users are setting up their email accounts for the first time. We have the ability to restrict autofill passwords, block proximity password requests, and restrict password sharing via AirDrop. All three of these features revolve around password sharing, and you may have run into this feature in the past. It's a really cool feature. iOS and macOS allows you to share a password with someone. As an example, your friend comes over and needs to use your Wi-Fi. Apple's systems allow you to easily share this with your friend right through your iOS device or your Mac. This is a great idea for customers, but it can become problematic in the enterprise, which is why Apple will allow IT admins to block these autofill passwords, proximity password requests, and sending passwords via AirDrop. Next up, finally, the popular Apple Classroom app is coming to the Mac. This is an education-focused tool which will allow teachers to remotely monitor and control iPads in a classroom setting. Much like the iPad counterpart, this does require an MDM configuration to work, and Jamf Pro 10.7 does fully support that. And then last on here, user data protections. We covered this in detail already, but as it is a big change with 10.14 and Jamf Pro 10.7.1, and we now have support for that privacy preference policy control profile and the ability to whitelist Jamf on Macs running Mojave. Let's take a look at some of these new settings. This is the new password restrictions for macOS to help restrict the sharing of sensitive information. Here you can see the new restrictions available within Jamf inside the restrictions payload. I'm allowing all of these right now, but I can uncheck these boxes to restrict them and continue on if that's what I'd like to do. And then we talked about OAuth. It's a new way for end users to log into their Office 365 accounts on their devices. This provides a more secure and seamless login experience for 365 users. OAuth compatibility is now part of the Exchange payload, meaning administrators can deploy an iOS native email account to their iOS and macOS devices with OAuth compatibility. Apple has also announced that Mojave will be the last operating system which will support 32-bit apps without performance impacts. This is why all of our desktop apps are now 64 bits. This will ensure the best performance of our products on Mojave going forward. So that wraps up macOS's new features. Let's talk about iOS. There's several new ones here, and Jamf is supporting the key features in the 10.7 release. We'll have a few more that we'll be rounding out with full support in future releases. And as you'll see on the screen, many of the new features are the same as they were on macOS. However, there are some unique ones, such as new restrictions for Exchange, critical alert notifications, and the ability to force date and time to be set automatically. The forcing date and time setting automatically is a really cool one. IT admins will now have the ability to force it to be set automatically on iOS devices. This does require that location services is enabled. And it will be helpful for administrators that are trying to just make sure date and time remain set automatically and properly. And it also can help mitigate exploits in which time and dates need to be changed to actually use. So this helps to get rid of some of that. And then much like we saw on the macOS side, here is the password restriction settings in the restrictions payload for iOS. And finally, the OAuth support on iOS. So next up, we got tvOS 12 with a couple of new features. Just like the iOS and macOS counterparts, we can block proximity password requests. We can, what's brand new in iOS 12 and with Jamf Pro 10.7 is the ability to distribute managed App Store apps. Not something we were able to do before, but you'll be able to link in with your volume purchasing now within Apple Business or Apple School Manager and procure tvOS apps to push out to your devices. The third feature, and this is new in tvOS 12, but you'll notice it's not part of Jamf 10.7. We expect this to go live with 10.8. But the ability to install software update commands remotely, like in iOS and macOS, is new to tvOS. Why isn't this in 10.7? Well, your tvOS devices do need to be running tvOS 12 to take advantage of this, so this will be a great thing to know for the next time you've got an update on your devices. Here we can see the password restrictions for tvOS, as well as the new section in Jamf to procure your Apple TV apps and manage them. Apple TV apps being procured through the App Store and Apple TVs being part of device enrollment, being able to take advantage of pre-stage enrollments, can really create some interesting scenarios. So what you're going to see on the screen here, nice looking hotel room with beautiful TV on the wall. We've got an Apple TV hooked up to it. But this type of automatic configuration you're about to see is now a complete reality. You can turn on a device, you can pick your language, and configurations would automatically begin to come down. Your settings, your apps, you'll see we've actually already got a complete suite of apps loaded onto this Apple TV. And now we're going to go ahead and start watching television. It really is that seamless process. End users could log into personal accounts and heck, a simple couple of button clicks away from setting it right back to fresh again. So lots of really great things coming. And remember, coming in Jamf Pro 10.8, we'll be able to send update commands to tvOS as well. So there are several new features that are available for Apple Business and Apple School Manager, and Jamf is supporting them in this latest release at 10.7. For those of you who maybe haven't been digging around in the Apple programs recently, Apple Business Manager has just launched this past summer, and Jamf has been fully supporting it since 10.3. What's new with Apple services right now? Well, we've already mentioned volume app procurement for tvOS. That's a big one. On the iOS side and the macOS side, we have some new setup screen skips that we can put into our pre-stage enrollments, such as skipping iMessage and FaceTime, screen time, and automatic software updates on iOS 12. And then being able to skip choosing your look, that's light mode and dark mode, and display tone, the true tone display that's built into the latest Macs, that can all be handled right through Jamf. It looks just like this in your pre-stage enrollments. You can turn these on and off. Here's the Mac OS of the same pre-stage. So I bring up Apple Business Manager, and I'd just like to take a moment to put some clarity around this. It is a new place for IT teams to automate device deployment, purchase and distribute content, and manage roles in their organizations. Working seamlessly with Jamf, Apple Business Manager makes it easy to control devices, deploy content, and delegate administrative privileges. Apple Deployment Programs, formerly known as the Device Enrollment Program, or DEP, and the Volume Purchase Program, or VPP, have been seamlessly integrated into Apple Business Manager. There's three main sections that make up Apple Business Manager. First is devices. Automated MDM enrollment, formerly DEP, is now part of Business Manager, giving you a fast, streamlined way to deploy corporate-owned Apple devices. You can automatically enroll devices into Jamf without having to physically touch or prep each one before users get them. This ensures that all users receive configurations immediately when they activate their device. The second section is content. The Apps and Books section of Apple Business Manager, formerly VPP, the Volume Purchase Program. This is where you can easily buy content in volume. Whether you're using iPhone, iPad, or Mac, you can provide great content that's ready for work with flexible and secure distribution options. Last is the Roles section in Apple Business Manager, and this allows organizations to create accounts for delegated administration tasks using managed Apple IDs that they own and manage. These accounts are for IT only, not for employees or end users. The idea is you may have an individual whose job is to assign devices to an MDM server, and they can be given that role. And you may have a different individual whose job is to procure apps and books, and they're given that role, and the two can't do those separate things. Help to make sure you're getting the right people in the right spots. So over time, Apple's going to help migrate all customers who are using DEP and VPP to Apple Business Manager, and just as schools have done in the past. Most schools are now on Apple School Manager. We will be updating our vocabulary to reflect this change, and when possible, we're going to use this new language. It would be great to get more people on board too. So instead of Device Enrollment Program or DEP, we're saying Device Enrollments. And instead of Volume Purchase Program or VPP, we're saying Volume Purchasing. And on the education side, instead of Apple IDs for students, we're saying Managed Apple IDs. Simple stuff, but there's a lot of acronyms out there, and this helps to clean some of that up. So now that we know what's coming from Apple, let's dig into how we can prepare. We're going to take a look at upgrading to macOS Mojave first, but before we do that, I wanted to take a look at the core Apple technologies that may define what your upgrade strategy will look like. If you recall from last year, Apple introduced a brand new file system with 10.13 High Sierra called the Apple File System, or APFS. This new system enhances performance and serves as a foundation for new features. High Sierra supported APFS for solid-state drives only. Mojave adds support for all drive types, Fusion drives, hard disk, and of course solid-state. Firmware updates are required to upgrade to APFS, which has impacts on traditional imaging workflows. According to Apple, before you install, make sure your Mac is connected to the internet, which allows installation of both macOS and any firmware updates available to your Mac. You'll find this at the Apple knowledge base marked on the bottom of the screen here. And that same article goes further as to say, Apple doesn't recommend or support monolithic system imaging as an installation method, because the system image might not include model-specific information such as firmware updates. We'd also like to point out one more item of preparedness when it comes to network requirements and macOS upgrades. Specifically, there are some considerations for MacBook Pros with Touch Bar, since those models have a second companion operating system that also needs firmware updates. For organizations that have very strictly controlled networks, please review this knowledge base article to ensure a successful Mojave rollout, as these firmware updates cannot be installed through a network that uses a proxy. We now, of course, have Macs that are shipping with the T2 chip, which is hardware security and enables secure boot and encrypted storage capabilities on these Macs. If your Mac has a T2 chip, you can use Secure Boot to make sure that only a legitimate, trusted operating system loads at startup, which is fantastic. This requires an internet connection, though, and effectively breaks traditional imaging workflows. And we've been talking about how imaging is going away for a long time. It's a time-consuming process for IT to build and maintain images. They become out of date quickly and often don't work when new hardware is released. Plus, with all the changes we've been discussing, updates that can only be downloaded from Apple when performing upgrades, this means we need to adopt a more modern method for provisioning. And this method is here. This method is Apple Business Manager and Apple School Manager, and it's how we initially provision new Macs. So let's go ahead and explore how we can go about upgrading to macOS Mojave. First, we need to ask ourselves, do we want to upgrade now? If we're not ready to deploy macOS to our fleet of Macs, or Mojave to our fleet of Macs, we do have a few options. First, we can create a policy to block the update. We can create a restricted software policy in Jamf Pro to just block the installer. We do so by blocking the install MacOS Mojave.app application and optionally choosing to delete the application and get an email notification. This should prevent end users from running the update on their own. In addition to the policy, which uses our Jamf agent, we have another option. We can now defer the software update using MDM for up to 90 days. This option is in the restrictions payload and will defer software updates for up to 90 days. 30 days is the default option. This will prevent the user from even seeing the update in the Mac App Store. Additionally, you can also prevent the installation of macOS beta releases by using the software update payload and checking this box. Okay, so now we've explored our options to prevent or delay the upgrade. Let's take a look at our options to move forward with the upgrade. We have another decision to make now. Do we want to keep the data on the Macs, or do we want to erase them? We're going to take a look at keep data, and we've got 3 options to explore there. First, we can simply let our users download the update from the Mac App Store once it's released. No IT is required, and the user does all of the work. It's a great idea to set up caching servers as well, if you're using this method, to help with the download speeds on your local networks. Next, IT can install the update automatically. We actually have 2 ways of accomplishing this method. Option A is to use an MDM command to perform the upgrade. Once 10.14 is generally available, you can use Jamf Pro to issue a command via a mass action to download and cache or download and install Mojave. This requires you enrolled the Mac via Apple Business or Apple School Manager, again formerly known as DEP. Starting with macOS Sierra, Apple added major releases to its standard software update mechanism. These major release updates are typically available about 2 weeks after the general release. So today, this command will not get you to Mojave, but check it out as a great option in a couple of weeks. Option B for automatically installing Mojave is to use the Jamf agent and create a policy. Here's a high-level overview of the process. First, you'll download the installer from the Mac App Store. Then, you'll need to package it up and upload to your Jamf Pro distribution point. And this can be accomplished by dragging and dropping the installer into Jamf Admin. Then, you'll deploy the update via 2 separate policies. One to silently cache the nearly 5 GB file onto your client Macs, and one to kick off the installation. We can use the startOS install command to kick off the installation. This will start the command via a script. When IT is ready to start the install, simply run that second policy to start the script. Our third option is to have the user run the installation when they're ready via self-service. This process is exactly like the method we just looked at, downloading the installer, uploading to Jamf Pro, caching the installer, and creating a second policy to install it. The difference, though, is this time we make that second policy via self-service, so the end user can start it when they're ready. So, those are our 3 options for upgrading while keeping the existing data in place. What if we want to erase that hard drive? Erasing the data can be helpful for shared device scenarios or when repurposing to new users. We've got 2 options here. First is to use NetInstall. This is a technology that lets you deploy macOS images over your network in conjunction with NetBoot. This method has been around for a while. It is still supported. However, there is a lot of work and some caveats. If you have a working NetBoot infrastructure, that's great. If not, though, it's likely not worth it. It's labor-intensive to build and maintain images. You often need specific macOS builds for specific hardware models, and this process will not work on Macs with a T2 chip that have secure boot enabled. This is why we recommend taking a different approach for erasing a hard drive. New in the macOS installer is a command to erase a hard drive and then install a fresh copy of macOS. This was introduced in 10.13.4 and will continue on with Mojave. The process is very similar to our upgrade policy we talked through before. However, this time we'll add the erase install flag after the startOS install command in our script. This will tell the Mac to erase its hard drive before performing the install. This is all possible thanks to APFS, which means this process will only work on Macs that have already been upgraded to APFS. So now, let's take a look at what that might look like in action. Here, we're going to go ahead and start our erase and reinstall macOS policy from self-service. And you'll quickly see that our Mac is erasing itself, is reinstalling macOS, and in just a couple of moments, we're going to be booting back up and resetting this up. IT has a simple job here. Once the process is completed, you can set it up again using Apple Business or Apple School Manager and your zero-touch workflows. This is all possible by using remote commands that we can execute via a script that's deployed using Jamf. Since we've been talking a lot about the startOS install command, you should know the other arguments that are available. Use the usage flag alongside startOS install to learn more. For example, agree to license and install package are very helpful reprovisioning tools.
And one thing I wanted to add here with this startOS install option is that really this opens up a lot of capabilities that are pretty exciting when it comes to customizations and reprovisioning. So you might see on this screen there's a new flag that says preserve container, and that's a new flag for Mojave as well. So we are seeing some pretty interesting workflows where people are basically having a hidden volume on their APFS container that contains a macOS installer, perhaps other packages, even a quick add package that's been flattened. And through this startOS install, a simple command with several arguments of what packages to install can all trigger a kind of a chain reaction of different packages to install, and even enrollment if you've got an internet connection, say like a Ethernet in a lab. So pretty cool stuff here. Expect to see some more things out there as far as customizations that you can easily put into your environments.
That's fantastic. Thanks for the insight, Mark. So, finally, if you need to manually reinstall macOS, you can use the Internet Recovery option. Hold down Command R while rebooting to enter the recovery partition, then use Disk Utility to erase your boot drive and install a fresh copy of Mojave. Again, the new Mac could be reset using Apple Business Manager, and this is all less time and effort than maintaining images. So with that being said, that are our options for upgrading to macOS. A lot of great options here, and we also have some more helpful resources. And I know, Mark, you had a couple of points on these too.
Yeah, so check out these links here. We shortened a couple of them. The second one, another plug for startOS install and Apple's documentation on this. But the first one shows really some more detailed workflow of working through packaging an OS installer within Composer, customizing a script that leverages startOS install. And many people may have been using this script in the past as well. It's received some updates over the last couple of years as well. I believe the link goes to a blog post of Jamf's, but the content on GitHub is still there, and honestly, we find a lot of people see that as a nice, effective way to customize OS installs.
Awesome. Thanks so much. All right, so now let's take a look at upgrading to iOS 12. In the past with iOS upgrades, there was only one answer to the question, do you want to upgrade? And that answer was yes. So before we talk about maybe not upgrading, let's explore what our options are for getting to iOS 12. First, users can do it on their own. This has been the traditional method for upgrading iOS versions, and users have gotten pretty good at it. Simply go to Settings and run the update. Now, if you want to force the update onto devices, IT has some tools at their disposal with Jamf Pro. You can send an MDM command to upgrade your eligible devices to iOS 12. Similar to the macOS option we saw earlier, we use the mass action command to start the upgrade and choose from downloading only or downloading and installing. This does require that the device is supervised. Okay, so what if we're not quite ready to deploy iOS 12 just yet? Well, we've actually got some options now, and we're really excited about this. We can defer software updates using MDM for up to 90 days. So this is known as managed software updates, and there are really two components to this feature. One is the ability to defer the update from 1 to 90 days. This requires that the devices are running iOS 11.3 or higher and that they are supervised. This is deployed using a configuration profile. Second is the ability to specify which version of iOS you would like to deploy. This is dependent on Apple still signing that version of iOS. However, you should be able to deploy versions that have been released within the last 90 days. So this is how these features work. First, we have devices that are at least running iOS 11.3, and we're using at least Jamf Pro 10.3 to deploy. And we're going to restrict that device from updating for the next 90 days. Today, as Apple releases new software, we're only able to update to the latest shipping version. With iOS 12 and Jamf Pro 10.7, this will change. You'll be able to specify what version of iOS will be deployed. This means when iOS 12 is released, IT can start testing iOS 12. And when Apple releases new updates, they can still test and certify. When they're now ready to deploy iOS 12, they can use the software update command to deploy it, even though a different version might be the publicly available one. This gives IT more control over what software is running on their managed devices. So there we are. Those are our options for upgrading iOS. We finally got an option to defer for up to 90 days and some great install automatically commands for you IT admins. And there we have it. Upgrade strategies for the 2018 Apple OS releases, macOS Mojave and iOS 12 and tvOS 12. We're going to open up the chat to Q&A in just a moment, but first a quick recap of what we've talked about today. Jamf Pro lets you accomplish zero-touch deployments, device configuration, app management, extensive inventory, managed security controls, and provides your users with a self-service app catalog that you can use to populate with approved apps and resources. Jamf Pro can be deployed in the cloud or hosted on-premise. We have data centers across the globe, and upgrades are handled automatically. We use Amazon Web Service for our infrastructure. On-premise can be ran on Linux, Windows, or macOS server. Jamf Pro is a MySQL database with Tomcat. Jamf also offers more to help you be successful. Our professional services offer on-location or remote services to customize your Jamf Pro environment. We also offer certification courses led by our training team. Become an expert in Jamf Pro and widen your skill sets. Finally, we have world-class support from Apple experts across the globe. We even offer 24/7 support via our premium support packages. Speaking of world-class support, of course, we are nothing without our customers, which is why we're incredibly proud of the Jamf Nation community. This community is over 50,000 members strong and is a free and open forum where Apple IT-focused individuals can learn from each other and gain best practices. As we talked about today, we integrate with Apple's programs and services. Jamf and MDM runs on their push notification service, APNS, of course leveraging the mobile device management frameworks built into macOS, iOS, and tvOS. We're fully compatible with Apple Business Manager and Apple School Manager too. We also integrate with a bunch of third-party tools, such as Active Directory, Single Sign-On, SCCM, Cisco, ServiceNow, and we even have our own API. If you want to find those third-party integrations, check out our Jamf Marketplace. Here, you will find the third-party tools to integrate into Jamf and where to find them, acquire them rather. So, if you're interested in going further with us, well, come on by. Visit us at jamf.com. You can submit a form for a trial. You can have us reach out and contact. We also have live chat and phone, of course, available. We would love to hear from you with any questions you have. We have a huge library of webinars online. I mentioned it earlier today. We are recording this webinar and we'll be posting it to our website in the next couple of weeks as well. We'd love to have you join the discussion at Jamf Nation as well. So with that being said, thank you very much for joining our webinar today. I'd like to go ahead and move into some Q&A.
Awesome. So this is Mark here. The questions have been firing pretty quick, much faster than I could respond with typing. So thank you, everyone, for the great questions. And I'm going to try to search through and try to call out a few of them specifically just to have some clarification. So firstly, well, let me scroll back to where I was. Awesome. So, so lots of questions here. One question, I've seen it come up a few times regarding blocking macOS updates. In the slides here, we called out the actual application name of install macOS Mojave.app. That is something that you can block the process that handles macOS installers. Just know that that process is different than what macOS updates take place with. The process is called Install Assistant, all one word, capital I, capital A. And we see that as a common method that macOS installers are blocked. With that, you can still do installations leveraging a StartOS install command. That does not get blocked by that. And plus other point release updates, 10.13.5 to 10.13.6, for example, those things would still go through just fine. Also, just seeing kind of a broader look, even taking a step back at how do you get the macOS installer file? It's a very large app. With that app, when you go to the App Store, you should be able to search for it and download that. A couple notes here of a couple people seeing both through experience and even the volume purchase program where macOS is downloading what's called a stub installer, a little like 22 megabyte file that doesn't actually contain all of the things. To do that, from my experience, at least in previous operating systems, generally having the latest OS on your system that you're downloading it from has been more successful to grab that package, or rather the installer itself. And with that, more testing, quite honestly, might be needed for that. With that package, even another question as well, talking about the macOS Mojave app. If you're building that using Jamf admin, if the sort of traditional Jamf OS install workflow where you drag an installer into that application, that will encapsulate it and put it into, I think it's like a gzip or some sort of compressed file, that when it gets uploaded and deployed as a package, the Jamf agent knows already to use the StartOS install framework. For anyone who's using the scripted workflow that was linked to in the Jamf blog post and anything where you're actually using StartOS install to trigger something, for that, the best practice is to take your macOS installer and make a package out of it with the Composer application. Composer can capture that in whatever file location you want, and then your subsequent policy to trigger it can sort of call that out as well. Checking out more questions. How do you deploy iOS updates to devices with a password? So with that, there is an option when deploying updates if you want to clear the password first. That being said, that may not be something that you want to do. Otherwise, users will be prompted for the password, as that is part of iOS's native data protections. Does Jamf now have similar iOS managed software update options? It does support software update commands as mass actions, but currently does not support the ability to select which OS version you want to go to. And taking a look as well, I wanted to also clarify something, just seeing even a theme of a few questions. So pardon me, I won't be able to keep up with all of these. But looking at a theme of deferring updates and such to block an OS installer, it's worth noting a couple things. So right now, if you are looking to get macOS Mojave, the only way to do it would be to use the App Store and download. And note that that is more the store side of things and not the software updates side of things. The past 2 years with Sierra and High Sierra, Apple has added major OS releases to its standard software update mechanism. So as it stands today, that restriction to defer software updates for up to 90 days, that can block it, but it still is something that is going to be based off of when that is available through the standard software update catalog, as it's referred to as well. And looking at these questions, let's see. Also, a recurring question, wondering if there will be a recording of this. Yes, there absolutely will. I believe everyone who registered will receive an email when it is ready. Is there a process to downgrade Macs shipped with Mojave down to High Sierra? I would say generally there is not, and that's not really the recommended path when it comes to macOS in general. With firmware updates and security, everything's really are always set to be moving forward. Couple notes about File Vault as well. Just wondering if things are the same in Mojave as they are in previous OS versions. And in short, the management tools and capabilities that you would be using, either enabling via a policy or via a profile, those things are going to be the same as what you're familiar with High Sierra on APFS or other OS versions. But new and interesting, however, in Mojave is a couple things brought back that the disk encryption framework can do. Specifically, if you've been a Jamf admin that uses policies to do things like an authenticated reboot in a policy, that once again can work in Mojave. The disk encryption framework will actually accept that recovery key if it's on file on the Mac. That can be used to authenticate for an authenticated reboot, and additionally for the means of issuing and creating a new recovery key. So a couple of those workflows that used to be there pre High Sierra APFS are returning, and be on the lookout for an updated tech white paper from Jamf detailing some of those changes as they've gone through into Mojave. And still just a lot of questions here. Some things when there's coming about questions about applications and issues you might be having with a particular application in your environment. I assume those questions are related to the user data protections. Sometimes people will call it the transparency, consent, and control, TCC. With that, it's worth noting that if an application is requesting things for users, that yes, ideally you will want to get ahead of it for the end user experience, and that's where that profile creator tool that Jamf has available can be used to create those profiles and upload them. Once again, that was a short link of jamf.it/pppc. Easier to say that in an acronym than privacy preferences, policy, control, payload. And with that, I think we may be closing down questions for now. Really great questions that everyone's been having. Certainly, we're happy to keep the conversation going here with Jamf, any of your Jamf reps that you work with, Jamf Nation, even on Slack as well. If you're on there, there's a lot of folks that were addressing these new OSs and looking to help and support each other.
Awesome. Well, thank you very, very much, Mark. Your expertise shines. And with that, we are going to wrap up today's webinar. I just want to take another moment to thank everyone for taking time out of their days and joining us. Jamf.com, come and say hi, learn about the new things, and reach out. We would love to say hi. So have a great day.